Somewhere right now, a father is holding his newborn, staring at its face, looking for himself. The nose, the eyes, something. That instinct is 300,000 years old, and for almost all of that time, it was the only tool humans had. No blood test, no DNA swab, no certainty at all. A mother always knows her body was there. A father never could. Not really, not for sure. And that single, brutal biological gap didn't just shape families. It shaped marriage. It shaped religion. It shaped why women's bodies were controlled for most of human history. You've probably never thought about it this way, but paternity, the simple question of whose child is this, might be one of the most powerful hidden forces in the story of civilization. Every wedding ring, every jealous partner, every law about inheritance, they all trace back to one unsolvable ancient problem. So how did a species that couldn't prove fatherhood build entire societies around it? Let's go back to the very first version of this problem. In 1972, evolutionary biologist Robert Trivers published a theory that changed how scientists understood sex itself. He called it parental investment theory. His point was simple, and it was devastating. A mother invests enormously in a child, 9 months of pregnancy, years of nursing, certainty of biological connection. A father, biologically, can invest almost nothing and never be sure the child is even his. This is called the paternity uncertainty problem, and every species that reproduces sexually has had to deal with it in some way. Male lions kill cubs that aren't theirs. Male chimpanzees form violent coalitions to control access to females. Humans didn't have claws sharp enough or strength alone enough to solve it that way. So we built something else instead. We built rules. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies, including work by Kristen Hawkes at the University of Utah, found that early human social structures repeatedly organized around one goal: reducing paternal uncertainty. Not eliminating it, that was impossible. Reducing it. One of the earliest strategies was mate guarding, a man staying physically close to a woman during her fertile periods, watching, present, visible, not out of romance, out of biology. Because in evolutionary terms, an unwatched woman was an uninvested investment. And here's the twist that reframes everything you just heard. This pressure didn't fall equally on both sexes. It fell almost entirely on women. Why? Because a woman's paternity of her own child is never in question. She carries it, she births it. There's no uncertainty on her side. So every cultural tool humans invented to solve whose child is this was aimed at controlling female behavior, not male behavior. Virginity before marriage, seclusion after puberty, chaperones, veils, bright price paid to a woman's family as a kind of biological insurance policy. These weren't random customs. They were, anthropologically speaking, paternity confidence technology. Humans engineered entire social systems to answer a question their bodies couldn't answer alone. And it worked well enough to matter, but not well enough to be certain. Because underneath every one of these systems, a quieter truth kept surfacing. Sometimes the child wasn't his. And somewhere deep in human history, some societies stopped trying to solve that problem and built around it instead. Here's what nobody talks about. Not every ancient society organized around the father at all. Many of the earliest recorded human societies were matrilineal, meaning inheritance, name, and belonging passed through the mother's line, not the father's. The Nair people of southern India, the Mosul of southwestern China, numerous indigenous nations across North America, including the Haudenosaunee. In these systems, a child's identity was never in doubt because it was never tied to an uncertain man in the first place. It was tied to the one parent biology could never lie about, the mother. Anthropologists studying these systems have argued that matrilineal descent may be one of humanity's oldest and most elegant solutions to the paternity problem, not by controlling women, but by simply not depending on an answer that couldn't be guaranteed. But most of the world didn't go that direction. Most of the world went the other way, towards patrilineal descent, towards controlling women's bodies, towards one of the strangest medical curiosities in anthropology. In dozens of cultures across South America, Papua New Guinea, and parts of Africa, ethnographers documented something called the kuvad, where a father experiences symptoms during his partner's pregnancy and birth, cramps, fatigue, even mimicked labor pain. Some researchers, including work published in the journal Current Anthropology, argued kuvad rituals functioned as a public performance of paternity, a way for a man to claim, physically and socially, this child belongs to me, in a world with no other proof available. Performance, not proof, because proof didn't exist, not for another 1,000 years. And here's where the ancient world collides with your Tuesday morning. In 1995, researchers Robin Baker and Mark Bellis published controversial findings suggesting a measurable percentage of children were not biologically related to the man raising them as father. Later, more rigorous studies, including a 2016 meta-analysis published in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B, found the real historical rate was much lower than the myth suggests, generally under 2% in most populations studied. Low, but never zero. Never zero across tens of thousands of years, across every culture on every continent, which means the paternity problem your ancestors faced was never fully solved. It was only ever managed. Sit with that for a second. For most of human history, fatherhood was not a fact. It was an act of trust, a leap made without evidence, sustained by ritual, social pressure, and sheer willingness to believe. Every ancient marriage ceremony, every dowry, every law of inheritance, all of it was humanity's elaborate workaround for a question our bodies simply refused to answer. And then in 1988, everything changed in a single afternoon. The first legally recognized DNA paternity test was performed, using techniques developed from Alec Jeffrey's genetic fingerprinting discovery in 1984 at the University of Leicester. For the first time in the entire existence of our species, a man could know, not trust, not perform, not guess, know. 300,000 years of ritual, jealousy, seclusion, and social engineering, solved quietly in a laboratory in about a week's time. But knowing the answer didn't erase the instinct. The instinct came first, the certainty came last. And that gap, that impossibly long stretch where humans built civilizations on top of a question they couldn't answer, is still inside you. Think back to that father holding his newborn, searching its face for his own. He probably doesn't know he's performing a ritual older than agriculture, older than written language, older than the wheel. He's doing what his ancestors did for 300,000 years, looking for proof his body was never built to receive. Today, a lab can give him an answer in days, but the searching, the looking, the hoping, the needing to see himself in another person's face, that part never left, because certainty is new. The need for it is ancient. And maybe that's the real inheritance passed down through every generation of fathers before DNA testing ever existed. Not the proof, but the wanting of it.